Hi everybody, Pete Sardis for The Lore You Know, and based on your requests, I am going to talk about The Dropout, which is the Hulu miniseries about Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos. We're going to go through the episodes and kind of do recaps on them. Now, if this is something you enjoy, please let me know in the comments below that this is something that you want us to continue doing. If not, if you just want me to focus on the Balwani trial, which actually starts this coming week, that's fine too. But again, you tell me what you want and I'll make sure that we get it done for you. That being said, before we start, this is a spoiler alert. I am going to talk about things that actually happen in the show. So if you haven't seen episode 1 yet, you may want to stop this video now so I don't ruin it for you. But before we do all this, if you're enjoying this episode, please give me a thumbs up. If you enjoy this series, please subscribe to our channel. And as always, questions and comments below. All right, let's talk about The Dropout. The name of the program, I think, comes from a speech that George Shultz did years ago where he actually introduced Elizabeth Holmes as the Dropout from Stanford. So I think that's where Hulu gets the name of the episode. Amanda Seyfried is the character playing Elizabeth Holmes, at least as an adult, and I think she's done a bang-up job, a spectacular job of really immersing herself into Elizabeth Holmes' character. Now, some of the other actors I think are doing a spectacular job, but I don't know if those actors really were the best fit to portray individuals from real life. I think they've done a Hollywood job of picking actors. The reality is they pick people that are probably too good looking, too normal for the parts that some of these folks are portraying, but regardless, it is still Hollywood. It is still designed for entertainment. Overall, it's a great show so far. So let's talk about what's true-ish, and what may not be true in episode 1. So let's set the stage. When the opening of episode 1 happens, you actually see what looks like a videotape of Elizabeth Holmes. And what that videotape actually is a depiction of the 2017 Securities and Exchange Commission investigation deposition of Elizabeth Holmes. And what happened was they actually, if you recall, the Securities and Exchange Commission filed civil sanctions against Theranos and Elizabeth Holmes personally. They took her statement in that case, and frankly the statements of many people, and that is what is being portrayed in the opening scene of The Dropout. So just to talk about what actually happened in the civil SEC case, Elizabeth Holmes wound up being fined $500,000. She lost the ability to sit on any board or be an executive of any publicly traded company ever. And she also had to give up the controlling share of Theranos. So that's kind of how those video clips that you see of Elizabeth Holmes in her little blue shirt and black jacket against that blue background, that's how that whole thing wound up. The scene involving Elizabeth Holmes at the running track is apparently something that stood out in the minds of a lot of her peers when she was young. So apparently the fact that she was an awkward teenager and that she always ended every race last is true. One of her friends gave an interview at some point and had indicated she was on the track team with Elizabeth Holmes when they were kids. And she says normally you would remember the person that wins the race, but every time Elizabeth was in a race, you would always remember Elizabeth Holmes because the officials on the track team would not let anybody cross the track until the last runner was done. So Elizabeth Holmes would come in very last. I mean, and the show actually depicts all of the runners on both teams sitting on the inside of the track just waiting for Elizabeth Holmes to finish. And apparently that is true. They say that she was a very driven girl even as a child. She didn't give up. And that social awkwardness, I think, is best served by that clip of her running and not just walking away from a race that everybody finished a long time ago. So that is true. The next point of interest, I thought, was the coming up with the Theranos name. And Theranos does, in fact, come from 2 words, therapy and diagnosis, and they put them together and came up with Theranos. It does sound Greek, but it's not. Interestingly enough, though, the word thanatos is a Greek word, and it means death. So yes, it is true that that's how the Theranos name came up, by the mixture of 2 words. Now, how interesting is life? Elizabeth Holmes in the video is portrayed to come home after her father has just learned that he's lost his job at Enron, and that there is a contention in the family that they're going to have to sell their house or move out and do all these things. And that is absolutely true. Elizabeth Holmes' father was the former vice president at Enron. Now, to be clear, I do not believe that he was in the department that was involved in the financial fraud portion of that company. I think he was totally in a different area, but he was in fact a former vice president for Enron, and then he did go to work for the United States Agency for International Development and kind of works on helping underdeveloped countries kind of bring their infrastructure up to speed, things like water, roads, electricity, internet, things like that. So another true portion about Elizabeth Holmes, and I guess the way that her life was fashioned, or her view of business was fashioned from a young girl. In the first episode, we also see a scene where Elizabeth Holmes is in her room with her earphones in, and she's singing a song, and she's basically singing to a poster of Steve Jobs and the Mac computer. And there's always been a contention that she is obsessed with him, and I think that we don't need the show to tell us if that's true or not. It is in fact true. She is obsessed with Steve Jobs. She felt that he was her icon, and he obviously was the most important person from a perspective of forming her business and entrepreneurial spirit. Obviously, the black turtleneck is very reminiscent of Steve Jobs, and this portion is in fact true about her obsession with him. Sunny Balwani. Okay. The meeting of Sunny Balwani and Elizabeth Holmes in China is true-ish. And what I mean by that is this. The movie portrays that Elizabeth Holmes goes to this immersion program in Beijing, China, so she can learn Mandarin. Obviously, while she's there, again, it shows that social awkwardness as she is speaking to all of her friends in Mandarin while all of her girlfriends are giggling at her saying, "Speak English." At some point, she does meet Sunny Balwani, and a friendship, let's just start that, ensues from that point forward. Now, did it happen in the way portrayed in episode 1 of The Dropout? No. In fact, Elizabeth Holmes had been to China a couple of times before meeting Sunny Balwani. And what I mean by that is she had spent 2 summers before this summer between high school and college at that program. So this is not like the first time she showed up, she meets Sunny Balwani and they just, hit it off. It's not the way it worked. In addition, I don't know if that representation, I'll call it a little bit of sexual tension between the two of them, happens so quickly. Elizabeth Holmes was in the beginning of her freshman year at Stanford. So it's a summer before her freshman year where she and Sunny Balwani meet. This is 2002. Sunny Balwani is married at this point, and he is in fact married until 2004. And there is an indication that the relationship between Elizabeth Holmes and Sunny Balwani didn't start until sometime in 2004 or 2005. So the reality is, I think that this is the best way that the show could have portrayed this meeting without consuming a whole bunch of time. But I don't want you guys to think that she shows up to Beijing, China, all of a sudden there's Sunny Balwani and they fall in love and move forward, because that's not the way it is. But one of the things that the show is doing, and I think this is a little bit more drama than reality, is they are portraying that Sunny Balwani may have some anger issues. They're hinting towards it early on, and that's kind of in some of those scenes with him. All right, let's go on. Professor Channing Robertson is Elizabeth Holmes' professor. And the question is, did he let her work in his lab as a freshman? The answer is yes, he did. But did it happen the way that the movie portrays it, that she walks in and basically stuns all of these grad students? I don't think so. I think that's a little bit of creative license and some drama. Reality is, Professor Channing did let her work in the lab as a freshman. She had actually approached him multiple times asking for the permission to do it, and he finally acquiesced. He did realize at this point how intelligent of a young lady she was, and had indicated to someone, and it could have been John Carreyrou, in an interview, that he really did feel that she was this generation's Einstein. And if you're careful and you watch the episode, you'll see where the actor that's portraying Channing Robertson says, did you know these people? He's having a conversation with Elizabeth Holmes. Did you know these folks? Yeah, and they actually asked me to be part of their investment, but I didn't invest, and now they're all billionaires and he's not. So I think that there may have been a little bit of remorse in his experience in life by not going a little bit further with some of his students. So he recognized Elizabeth Holmes is brilliant, and actually says it to people in these interviews that she is intelligent, and he thought she was the Einstein of this generation, and I don't think he was going to miss another opportunity to be part of something huge and monumental as a startup. Okay, does he actually introduce her to a number of people? Yes, he actually does introduce her to a number of people that wind up becoming board members for Theranos and ultimately investors. So that part of the representation is true. All right, let's talk about a topic that's a little bit more dark. There are allegations of a sexual assault that happens to Elizabeth Holmes in college in episode 1. In the episode, it seems like because of the sexual assault, she just cleans out her dorm room and leaves college. That's not so true, but I did go back and check, and there is a report to the Santa Clara Sheriff's Office back in 2003, and it has been verified that she did make a sexual assault complaint. Nothing ever came of it, and I could not find anything, at least in the public record, that indicated Elizabeth Holmes ever made I don't want to say a big deal, but ever publicly came out regarding that sexual assault until her trial here in the end of 2001, where she testified about it. So, was she sexually assaulted in college? I would presume the answer is yes. Was it the reason she left Stanford? No, I don't think that that's the case. And the reason I say that I don't think it's the case is because she doesn't really leave Stanford until 2004. So there's a year between the report of sexual assault to the Santa Clara Sheriff's Office and her actually leaving school. I think that the whole Theranos concept, and she got the team together and, at this point talked her parents into giving her the money to start Theranos. That's kind of what was the catalyst. But again, it does appear that sexual assault did happen to her, and it seems like it did have some sort of an impact in her development as a person. Let's talk about the part where Elizabeth Holmes is sitting in her car in the parking lot of the first Theranos building in Burlingame, San Francisco, and bullets come flying. That, in fact, is true. What winds up happening is Elizabeth Holmes talked her parents into giving her her college money, which was about $30,000 at the time. And with that $30,000, the only thing she could afford was this office space in Burlingame, part of San Francisco, which is not exactly the best part of San Francisco. It was notorious at the time for some violent crime. And in fact, she did have the window of her car shot out by a stray bullet. Now, I don't know if she was physically in the car in reality when the window was shattered, but at least in the episode, it indicates that she was in the car and there was glass everywhere. So it's very possible that she may have been in the car, but absolutely, yes, this is true. The car window was shot out by a stray bullet. So that's episode 1. If this is something that you want me to do, please let me know and I'll keep doing it. If not, if you want me to focus on the Sonny Balwani trial, no problem. We can focus on Sonny if that is your command. With that, if you enjoyed the episode, give me a thumbs up. If you're enjoying the series, please subscribe. And as always, questions and comments below. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for watching this episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you like this content, please share it with your friends. Make sure you subscribe to our page and like our videos. If you want some interaction, get in the comments and we'll be sure to get back to you. If you want to know any more information about our firm or this page, you can find out in the description or visit tragoslaw.com. We post multiple times throughout the week, so make sure you hit that bell so you can get the notification and not miss out on the next episode.